Well, I'm now joined in the studio to discuss this with GB News' political editor Chris Hope and GB News' senior political commentator Nigel Nelson. I'm also delighted to be joined by the Conservative Shadow Policing Minister Matt Vickers. Gentlemen, welcome to you all. Chris, I'm going to start with you. Those who tuned in at 3 o'clock would have seen I sort of flew off the handle a bit about all of this because I'm one of those political journalists who thinks PMQs is a farce. I think it's just braying, it's infighting, it's Westminster navel-gazing, and quite simply, a couple of days ago, the Prime Minister was hours from being on the dole. Yeah. Why did Kemi Bay not finish him off today?
It's all those things. Sometimes PMQs rises to the moment outside the chamber. Sometimes it feels quite insular and insulated from what's happening outside. Today was one of those latter days. I mean, the PM is under scrutiny for his choices made with Peter Mandelson, the fact that he didn't read the papers properly, it seems, before making him the ambassador, do the vetting properly about his links to Jeffrey Epstein. And then it follows on. There's another example of this now. Apparently, Matthew Doyle, the former Director of Communications, he had links to a person who pled guilty to holding indecent images of children. In between him being charged and that happening, Doyle had campaigned with him back in 2017. And then he was given a peerage by the Prime Minister despite this being on the front page of the Sunday Times at the end of December. So it goes into this incurious Keir. Why wasn't Keir Starmer responding to concerns raised in the press and then acting? Instead, he ignored it, appoints him as a peer, and now he's been told he can't be a Labour peer in the House of Lords, and there's an investigation by the Labour Party. It's a part of a pattern of failing to address issues. I know you're rolling your eyes. This matters, though, but I say there are two types of PMQs. One of them, when it just talks to the nation and raises the issues the nation wants to talk about. Other times it's about the leader of the opposition attacking him on his character.
The reason I'm rolling my eyes is because a great many of our viewers just think the normal rules don't apply to politicians. They get away with all sorts. Nothing ever happens. When you tell them to do stuff, they don't listen. They don't want to get Brexit done. It's the wrong kind of vote. Keir Starmer campaign against it for 3 years.
That was 10 years ago, Martin. You've got to move on.
I've never lost a fight, he said. Yes, you did. Yeah, mate, you lost Brexit. You lost a second referendum and you backed Jeremy Corbyn.
But he's elected PM in July 24 on a supermajority. He is doing what he can to deliver some parts of his manifesto, not always successfully. I should say, by the way, on the issue of Lord Doyle, he has apologised for his past association with Sean Morton, the individual.
All right.
Just so you're clear.
Good. Matt Vickers, let's get in. Why didn't Kemi Bay not finish off the Prime Minister today? He was there to be just eviscerated. And it didn't happen. Did Kemi miss the mark again?
So last week you saw the huge consequences that Prime Minister's questions can have. When that Prime Minister stood at that dispatch box and confessed the fact he knew a guy he'd appointed to the most prestigious diplomatic post we have, he knew at the time of the appointment that this rotter was linked to this paedophile, was still accepting hospitality from this paedophile after he'd been convicted. And today, again, that was a huge error of judgment. It was appalling. It's entirely unacceptable. And today, again, we've got another case of one of his chums where we've seen vetting should have been looked at. This person should never have been appointed. He does have links to child sex offenders. Should never have happened. It was bypassed. The cronyism element of this, the fact that Mandelson and now Matthew Doyle, who was his chief of comms at Number 10, chums with... If you've got chums in the Labour Party, you can be appointed to these incredibly honoured, prestigious positions, despite the fact you are linked to some of the most vile, evil, depraved criminals around. And the Prime Minister just overlooks it, bypasses it.
This is your opportunity to take advantage of ExpressVPN and their best deal ever. Get a premium VPN with enhanced privacy, security and identity protection. By supporting ExpressVPN, you're supporting us here at GB News. And on premium and advanced plans, you get a dedicated zero-knowledge password manager app, and coming soon, the world's first consumer AI platform built on confidential computing. This video's sponsor, ExpressVPN, couldn't be easier to use. Just click the link, download the app, connect, and you're protected. Click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code to save up to 82% off ExpressVPN, plus 4 extra months free.
But a lot of people will sling the exact same allegations at the Conservative Party. In fact, the Prime Minister did it. It's like during COVID, there was cronyism in terms of PPE jobs given out. There's cronyism in terms of like lordships given out. And I want to make the broader point that I made in the last hour. A great many people just think the political classes are all the same. They're in it for themselves. It's a gravy train. And there's no way of getting rid of a Prime Minister. He's the least popular Prime Minister in history. 52% of people today want him to go. Only 15% of Brits think that he shouldn't resign. They probably vote for the Labour Party, but nothing can be done.
I think it's quite difficult to compare this failure in judgment to anything that's gone before it. People should be held to account legally for all of the things that went on with COVID contracts. That is entirely right. If the processes were wrong, if people took advantage of that, they are being held to account. It's the right thing to do. But to have a Prime Minister, the man in charge of this country, appointing his chums to some of the highest offices in the land when he knows that they have links to some of these... These aren't just bad guys. They aren't, we all knew that Mandelson was a rotter. We didn't know that he was connected to one of the most evil, sick people ever to walk the earth.
Kemi Badenoch made a good point today when she said, that Sir Keir Starmer was quick to apologise to the victims of the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein, but hasn't at all apologised with certainty to the victims, the thousands of white British working-class girls who've been raped by Pakistani Muslim rape gangs. But Kemi Badenoch didn't raise that topic either at the dispatch box in 2 years on opposition. Is there a sense, again, that every topic is just weaponised in a way that's a political football, but nothing ever changes?
Well, to be honest, political football, this government needs a good kicking for its response to grooming gangs. The reality is, 2 years ago nearly, the fantastic journalism that went on this channel exposed that 50 towns across this country were affected by the issue. And here we are, nearly 2 years down the line, with sod all being done about it. That is a stain on society. What went on, what's being covered up, is a stain on society. Our failure to actually get a grip, to have this investigation underway, to deliver justice for those people, to learn those lessons and have anybody who covered it up held to account is another huge stain on this society and this government and its utter failings to get a grip on the problem.
You could have brought an inquiry out yourself. You didn't.
Well, we didn't know the scale of it at 50 towns, but actually we launched that grooming gangs task force that identified thousands of victims, saw thousands of people who'd conducted this thing locked up and people held to account.
But you didn't call for the inquiry, the full inquiry in opposition, in power, that you're calling for in opposition, which is kind of my point.
We launched the Grooming Gangs Task Force, which took direct action to protect victims and hold these vile, evil people to account. The scale of the thing has been completely exposed by the work that Charlie did on this channel, and ever since then it's actually the Conservative Party who've been kicking this government to get the thing done. And it's right, it's the right thing to do. They need to get on with it. It's atrocious. In fact, it's on you lot as journalists. Why have you let them get away with it for this long? Why is that man still in number 10? Why haven't you got the public to boot him out?
Well, why didn't you properly oppose him in the last election? Why didn't you actually make the arguments to stop this majority? Don't blame us for your failures.
You persuaded people that they could believe in this government's absolute bullshit pledges.
You were
promise
out
after
of
promise,
time, out of arguments.
You failed. Broken promises. Broken promises to pensioners, broken promises to farmers. You didn't hold him to account. You let him sell this absolute garbage to the country. Now he's in there doing untold harm. There are people out there out of work, can't get a job because of the things he's doing.
For your failures.
You failed to hold him to account.
Pathetic to blame journalism for you to make the case.
We are there holding him to account. We're in that chamber while you're messing around with tweets and things.
But that's what oppositions do.
We're in there today arguing about the fact there are 1,318 less police on the streets of the UK now than there were a year ago, and you're not covering it.
But oppositions are about pointing out what the government is getting wrong. Chopper makes a good point that you had 14 years, and that's the reason you were chucked out last time. It's the reason that Keir Starmer got that tremendous majority. Whether you think that was a good thing or a bad thing, that's why it happened, because of the failures of your previous 14 years. Now you're in opposition.
There was lots of mistakes made by the last government.
And there are mistakes being made by this one.
But you mentioned the policing 1,400 fewer police. Why didn't Kemi raise that in the PMQ? She had 6 questions. She failed to raise the issue that you think so important.
Because we've been talking about it in there for about 2 hours. Where is it? Why isn't it on your channel? People are paying a fortune in tax. There are less police on the streets. Spiralling levels of robberies against business and shoplifting. That's what you should be covering today.
I tell you what, of all the things that's been accused of Sir Keir Starmer being into power, I never would have held Chris Hope accountable. Matt Vickers, on a serious point, to actually sit there, my friend, and say it's GB News' fault that Sir Keir Starmer is in power.
Allowed him to get elected without the scrutiny deserved.
I think it's one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard in this TV studio. The
last government made lots of mistakes. I'm definitely not denying that. In fact, I've talked about them week in, week out. But to say that we are not trying to hold them to account in that chamber, whether it be on grooming gangs,
you don't think GB News is holding this government to account?
You should be holding them to account on those police numbers that we've been talking about today.
You don't think GB News is holding this government to account?
Why aren't we holding them to account on those police numbers that have been unveiled?
I don't know. We're talking about rape gangs. We're talking about paedophilia. We're talking about an inability to control our borders. We're talking about school stabbings.
There's going to be all the more to worry about.
We're talking about people being murdered in hotels and getting no apology from the Prime Minister or the government. We're talking about energy costs going through the roof. We're talking about all these topics all the time. The fact we're not talking about the precise thing you want us to talk about, it's bonkers.
Well, you keep saying the stuff that goes on there is about holding the government to account. That's exactly what we've been doing on that issue today. At no point would I ever say the last government didn't make huge numbers of mistakes.
Here's a little pub quiz.
Holding the opposite, holding the government to account.
Here's a little pub quiz question. Which political party cut 20,000 police officers from frontline service? Ooh, it was you lot.
No, when the last government left office, there were more police on the streets than ever before. Crime had fell by more than 55%. We need more police on the streets, not less. Yet what we've got...
We can all agree on that, but you didn't do that in Parliament.
Well, we did. We put a record number of police on the street. There are less police on the street today than there were a year ago. That is hugely consequential. It's hugely consequential around violence against women and girls. It's hugely consequential to high streets across this country where shops are being pushed out of business, not only because of the business rates that the government's leveraging on them, not only because of that national insurance hit,
before you go,
because the police...
Quick question. If you're a gambling man, and I would never assume you were, how long do you think the Prime Minister's got left? When's the airlock finally going to open and Keir Starmer going to outer space?
Well, it requires those backbench Labour MPs to grow a spine and boot him out. But the reality is, U-turn after U-turn, they wouldn't stand up to him on winter fuel until it got to their very last ebb of life. I mean, I don't see him going before May. I think that's kind of baked in now that nobody wants to pick up that baton, that greasy baton until after May.
The post-May Starmageddon. That's when he could go.
But then again, if you had been a Labour MP, would you not have been standing up to him to get him out by now? There's a lack of spine and backbone to stand up to him.
But it would create chaos. But the whole thing is it would create chaos to start changing Prime Ministers, as your lot discovered when you kept changing Prime Ministers. I think that the Labour MPs on Monday, it was getting close, but they did, as Ed Miliband said, step back from the precipice.
All right, gentlemen, we have Matt Vickers, a wonderful spirited exchange.
Always.